Jim, our next question sent to CornyDriveThru at gmail.com from Philip in Greenville, South Carolina. Hey, Jim. After going back and watching some of the midnight matches back in the day, I've noticed that when you take a bump, you don't go straight to the mat or just fall back. You get some air. It seems most of the time, the bottom of your feet would be facing the ceiling while falling. Was this natural agility? Or did you put extra emphasis on your bumps? Who taught you how to take bumps? And did you pass your great bump-taking knowledge on to wrestlers in Smoky Mountain, OVW, etc.? P.S. It's funny how the crowd is so much louder during your matches than the crowds in the giant arenas today.
Well, there was a lot of questions there. But to answer who trained me, to nobody. I figured it out because there was no place to train at that point. I've mentioned this. In Memphis, they say, okay, you're a manager. Okay. And everything that I ever did in the ring, I did for the first time on a show in front of people. And every once in a while, if it was going to be something, like obviously when Undertaker tombstoned me, I said, hey, pick me up. Let me fucking go through this first. I don't want my fat ass to make you look like an idiot. Also, I don't want to get my neck broke. But I never took it. I just got picked up, and you can get picked up in the locker room. But when you land for the first time, that's in the ring. So I just kind of, figured it out. And if shit hurt, then I tried not to do it that way again. Was I putting extra oomph in it? Yes, because one of the bigger pops of the match, and usually the biggest pop, if we did it right, was somebody getting a hold of me. So it had to look somewhat palatable. So yes, there was getting up in the air involved and everything. I've learned that from a kid watching Bobby Heenan. That didn't mean that Bobby showed me how to take those bumps. It just meant that the flavor of it, the idea of it was, yes, it's got a boom. I got the shit knocked out of me. What were the other questions offhand involved in all of that?
Why you took air, why your feet were sticking up in the sky when you landed, who taught you how to do it? Was it extra emphasis?
Did I teach anybody in Smoky Mountain? No, because everybody already knew how to take a bump. Did I teach anybody in OVW? I took a few bumps and a few training classes just to show them a couple of things specifically, but there were other people that had more bumps on their bump card and more experience taking them in a wrestling context that could teach guys there that. So, no. And it just, like I said, basically, as a manager, both pitching and catching, giving and receiving, offense and defense, however you want to say it, the idea that managers should physically look like they don't know what they're doing and their shit should look fake was never one that I ascribed myself to. It was, we should look like we're trying, we're just ineffective. I should look like I'm hitting someone as hard as I can or kicking them as hard as I can. I just can't kick or hit very hard, but I'm trying. And when I'm getting the shit kicked out of me, then whatever somebody does to a wrestler that knocks them down should knock me fucking up in the air and down and possibly through the ropes or whatever. Does that make any sense?
Makes a lot of sense.
So that's what I did. Sometimes it worked out that I could do those things without banging myself up, and in other cases, I made a drastic error in judgment.
What did you think of the bump Eddie used to take, Eddie Gilbert? When you would punch him and he would almost jump across the ring in midair until he landed.
And stiffen up first and jump. Well, part of that, it was a different kind of bump, and that's what we're missing is guys taking bumps in a different way. I'm not saying you should just take reckless bumps without, like I did, figuring this out and not really controlling where you're landing. But guys' bumps used to be different because they used to take them differently for different reasons. And one of Eddie's reasons was because that broken neck that he had in that car accident, 1982?
83.
82, 83.
He actually got into the car wreck the same night Jimmy Snuka murdered his girlfriend.
There you go. And got knocked off the front page of the Observer. It didn't exist then.
It did exist, but it didn't get.
Nobody knew it. But no, because Eddie didn't start taking that until later on, and it was kind of a heelish looking bump anyway. But it had, I think, something to do because he never snapped his neck back because he couldn't. So he got movement without having to snap his damaged neck around. And that's the story behind a lot of guys. The way that they would do things and developed it was because they were taking care of an injury, or in some cases, this is a funny thing, but a lot of times you've seen clips of me doing an elbow drop, right?
Of course.
And
I just saw one the other day. Someone tweeted out and said, "Look at this, a perfect elbow drop from Jim Cornette."
Well, and it was on Mosh of the Headbangers on a Raw episode, and I retweeted it because I mentioned watch this ring because that's before we had the ring switched and it was harder than a fucking frying pan. There was no and I was almost 280 then, and I'd jump up in the air and land, and there's no fucking bounce to the ring. But the point is, I did a nice looking elbow drop, especially for my unathletic self, but if you ever notice, it was with the left arm. And most guys drop the right elbow. Most wrestlers drop the right elbow. Most people drop the right elbow, especially if you're right-handed. I've never dropped one, and I can't. I couldn't figure out how I can't make that motion. Sometimes guys have different stuff that they do because they just can't see in their mind, or they can't figure out going that way. It's just natural to them to go the other way with something. And that's why the things sometimes are different. But you just kind of figure that stuff out. But I can't land flat or jump right or do anything. I can't kick off with the right foot. It wouldn't work. And there's different guys with different things like that used to make everybody's work look different. Now everybody just does it all the same way, whether they can do it or not.
And to your point, you didn't do it the same way Heenan did it. And of course, no one did it the way Jimmy Hart did it because he didn't really sell. He just went down. Yeah,
well, and Jimmy would collapse and crumble. Jimmy had a...
I love it.
But it's not funny, though, because Jimmy had a ton of injuries when he first got started in Memphis. And he warned me. He was like, and that's when he would give me the knee pads and everything. You're going to need these. And I didn't get hurt as much as Jimmy did for two reasons. I was younger, and I had been watching wrestling not as a fan, but as with a discerning eye for longer than Jimmy had, because Jimmy never dreamed that he was going to be a participant in the wrestling. He had gone and sold Cokes in the 50s at the Ellis Auditorium. He was there when Sputnik Monroe fought Billy Wicks at Rustwood Park, but he was a fan. And then when he got in music, he never thought he was going to be a professional in wrestling of any kind until probably a few weeks before it happened. Lawler said, "Hey, you need to be my manager." And he'd had no training and never got any training. But Jimmy, whereas I was 21, he was almost 40 when he started. And even though he was, Jimmy's always been lean, mean, slick, and quick, and looked younger than he was, and he was in good physical condition for a regular person, he didn't know how to take all those bumps, and he hadn't been there at ringside for the previous 5 or 6 years like I had, looking through a camera lens, paying attention to this, studying how it's done. So his bumps, he just collapsed and went with them, but he had his jaw broken, and of course that
that was intentional, wasn't it?
I was about to say the accidental nature of that has been debated by Lawler, but Jimmy believes it was payback for the "what do you do with a horse when he breaks his leg? You shoot him" comment on TV. But also Jimmy had been, he broke his hand once. He had shin splints. He'd got busted open hard way a couple of times. He broke something in his foot one time. it was hard on him because he was getting beat up regularly, and for that whole period of time from 79 to 84, the whole object of any babyface in the territory was to get your hands on Jimmy Hart and beat him up because it never got old to the people. It still drew. So he got the shit kicked out of him. Whereas I was underneath on the card for a lot of that, so I was figured in and I was getting experience, but at the same time, the people weren't paying, except in that angle with me and Adrian Street against Bill Dundee. The people weren't really paying to see me get the shit kicked out of me, so I'd take a bump or two in the finish, whatever. And also it came more naturally to me because I was younger, a little more adaptable, and I had been painstakingly studying how, even though I can't do it, I mean, you know, you can painstakingly study a high jumper, and you can, even a regular person can probably fairly well mimic the form, but you might only jump 3 feet in the air because you're a normal fucking person. So I'd been painstakingly watching how this was done. Even if I didn't have the athletic ability to do a lot of it, I was kind of seeing how it was taking place.
And obviously, I'm going to assume Heenan is your all-time favorite manager taking bumps.
Well, yes. I mean, you know, that's the thing is, except for Stevens and Bockwinkel, for most of the time, Bobby was a better worker than anybody he managed. But he would do the same thing. He didn't work like a wrestler that should be taken seriously. He worked like a manager with the idea that he'll get heat in a cheating fashion and then sell on the comeback for the people to get their jollies off seeing him get his just desserts.